Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to the Modding of Isaac with Lyte. And today's episode is a follow-up to a previous episode on familiars who follow. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch it now. It has a lot of good information, but some of it has changed. Thanks to the ever-shifting API, we now have a better way of doing some things, and there's a bit of an update to something that isn't directly familiar related as well. So we're gonna work with our Little Azazel mod. And so what we've got is our good friend Little Azazel here, adorably evil, fires brimstone. If you watch my episode on lasers, we now have two ways of firing his brimstone, depending on how you want it to be done. When we pick up multiples of him, we have multiples of him. Kabam! Now, the difference is that now, if we were to hit the spacebar, they actually re-roll. Brilliant! If we hold R, try it again, we pick one up. We grab missing no, et voila! We don't have him anymore, then we pick this one up, and he's fine. And they follow as they should. But I've modified the code quite a bit from the way it was. So let's head over to the code, see what's changed. So here's the old code. It has the spawn follower helper function. We've got the realign familiars caboose code here. And then down here on cache, we've got a lot of just stuff for keeping track of how many we have, how many we should have, adding more, and removing the ones we don't need anymore. All of that is going to be replaced by hardly anything, if anything at all. So if we move over to the new code, there is no helper function. There is no caboose code. It's all gone, you don't need it anymore. This first bit is the first frame stuff, no change, just spawning things into the room. Variant, the familiar variant and collectible type, unchanged. I updated the initialization, so MC familiar init for Little Azazel. This part is for when an Azazel, a Little Azazel, initially spawns. Just that first time we do this. So we get the data regarding the Azazel, and we initialize the charge and cooldown, because there's no reason to do that in the update. You do that on initialization. And, very importantly, this is huge. You have to say Zazel.isFollower equals true. If you don't set Zazel to be a follower, he won't get in line properly with the rest of the followers. So it's a two-part process. You need to make him properly, and then you need to tell him to be a follower. Three-part process, really, because you also need to tell him to follow. So in update, I removed the initialization, and I added Zazel follow parent as usual. So that was not changed. This was here to begin with. Just wanted to remind you if you didn't watch the other episode. All of this code for doing the animations and the charging still appears to be necessary. I tried to use the play charge anim for the familiar, and it crashed my game. I gave it a direction, it crashed everything. So I'm gonna have to investigate that. It should work, but right now, for me at least, it doesn't. So I still have all of this extra code for playing the animations. C'est la vie. But the real coup d'etat is this on cache function. Remember how much code we had here? Look at all this code. Look at it. Now we have one line. We don't even have to check if they have the collectible. All you do is you say player, check familiar, your familiar variant, and then how many they should have. Now this is usually based on an item they pick up, but if something you have gives them a variable number of variable familiars, well, you can do that. So in this case, since it's based on an item, we use player get collectible num. So we get the number of collectibles of type collectible type, collectible little Azazel. So we count how many times they've picked up little Azazel, and that's how many it will make sure we have. So if we cut that down to 0, poof, they're all gone. If suddenly it's 6, boom, we've got 6. And then this last one is an RNG object. I'm not entirely certain of the purpose of this RNG item, like object. I don't know what purpose it serves in spawning these familiars, because this should be a deterministic thing. So I just send it an uninitialized RNG object, so RNG 2 colons. If there is some reason for this to be there, there should be an obvious RNG to send it. But it's not obvious. If we check the Lua docs, we've got a couple of RNGs for the player, but, I mean, do we send the collectible RNG for the familiar object? Or like the familiar item? Maybe. Certainly not Trinket Pillar Card. There are a couple of other RNGs you can get from other places like seeds, but it doesn't really strike me as all that useful, because all of the RNG would happen after it's been brought into existence. And even then, I don't know how you'd get your hands on this object to even roll it. So a little more investigating might be necessary for that RNG part. But that's all there is. This is a very short episode. We replaced this on-cache pile of code with one line. Player check familiar, our type, how many we've got of him, RNG, in the cache familiars cache, such that when you pick up a familiars object, it runs this. We did pretty much nothing to the update. We just moved the initialization to where it belongs. And then in the initialization, you need to set isFollower to true. We got rid of the caboose code. We got rid of the spawning helper, because we don't need it. That's all there is to it. We save a whole lot of code. We run more in line with the way the API is meant to work. And we found out that re-rolling the modded items does in fact work now with the D4 and with missing no. So that's good news too. That's all I've got for this episode, so I will see you in the next episode of the Modding of Isaac with Lyte.